Hi, I'm Ruben with Nomono, and in this video we're going to take a deeper dive into the Nomono Enhancement and what kind of processing happens to your audio in the Nomono Cloud. So without any further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So here we are in a professional audio editor, Davinci Resolve Fairlight. We're going to pretend that Fairlight is the Nomono Cloud, and then we're going to replicate what happens to your audio in Nomono Cloud, both on upload, but also when you press the enhancement button. So in this one, we're going to look at what happens when you upload audio into the cloud. And we do something called ingest processing, and it's the only processing that we do without you choosing to actually do it. And it's a non-destructive processing, so it doesn't change your audio file in any way except make it a bit louder, but it doesn't do any compression or limiting or anything like that. It's a simple peak normalization, and that's what we're going to look at with this recording right now. So first we need to import our recording into Nomono Cloud, of course, and we have to put it on individual tracks because Nomono always does processing on individual track level. And I'm just going to make this a bit bigger so we can see better. And we're going to take a listen to it, just like the Nomono would. It would listen and analyze.
It's a nice venue.
It's a fantastic space, but it's a real hard space to do.
And Nomono Cloud would quickly realize that this recording is really low in volume, and it would start looking for the loudest peak. So let's just make these waveforms a bit bigger so we can see better. Now this is not changing the audio yet. I'm just simply doing a visual boost of these waveforms so we can see them better. And here we can see that there are some loud peaks in this recording, like this one, and this one, and this one, and that one, and that one. So let's just do them chronologically and figure out which one is loudest. Start over here. And we're going to take a look at this True Peak meter up here. TP stands for True Peak. And currently, the loudest True Peak has been measured is at minus 22 dBs. So let's see if that number changes when we play this peak.
Yeah, the amount of
19.4. Okay, then let's check this one.
But we do have our Nomono.
So that one was not louder than this one because the number didn't change. Let's do this one down here.
Even though we don't have
That's at minus 18.4, so that one was a little bit louder. Let's check this one.
So, even if our...
That one was not louder. And then we just have one loud one left over here. So let's see what happens up here when we play that one.
As an environment for the recording.
Minus 15.2. Okay, so we know that the loudest peak in this recording right now is at minus 15.2 dBTP, or at true peak. That leaves us with a headroom of 15.2 dBs. And we're going to make use of that by raising the level of this recording with 14 dBs. So we'll start with the first track, and we'll go to the input levels up here and the patch settings, and we'll just boost the trim or the gain by 14 dBs for each of the tracks. And the reason why I'm doing it up here instead of here is that I want to keep my fader in unity, kind of default position when I'm going to start mixing this. And that's basically it. Now this recording is going to be much louder to listen to, and this loudest peak is going to be at minus 1.2 dBs.
Spaceness as an environment for the recording.
Minus 1.2. And now you can also hear that there's a lot of issues in this recording, so let's just listen from here.
We still think that they can do a good job in making voices heard.
Yeah, and that's, well, I think it's great. We can do fantastic recordings in a space and still maintain the spaceness as an environment for the recording.
There's a large boom over here.
And still maintain the spaceness.
Somewhere, I think that's a door slamming. Of course, there's a huge reverb. There's some voices in the background, and there's some kind of AC hum going on in this space.
Making voices heard.
Yeah, and that's, well, I think it's great. We can do fantastic recordings in...
So there's a lot of stuff that's messing up this recording, and this would be a horrible recording to mix. manually, which we're gonna do. So we definitely have our work cut out for us here, but we're gonna give it a good shot. Either way, that's the ingest processing. It just does a simple true peak normalization to -1 so that you get a better listening experience to your recording without needing to do any kind of processing in the cloud. Thank you for watching. In the following videos, we're gonna go even deeper and take a look at what happens at each step of the processing pipeline with our denoising, our crosstalk reduction, the EQ, our leveling and loudness normalization, and all of that. And we're gonna keep replicating inside of Davinci Resolve so that you get a much better understanding of what actually happens to your audio when you press that enhance button.